I shall kill it till love. This is love when I wanna get another one. I go take and do it in I love. Waiting you love, oh. No be waiting I love, oh. Waiting I love, I go know how we love my heart, oh. Go no be vodka. Mr. Money changer. But I know the ways that Mr.
You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong. You are always welcome home, welcome home. You've been kept down for much too long. Stand up, please, and say I am free. Don't forget you are welcome home, welcome home. Come with me on this happy trip back to the promised land. On this happy trip back to the promised land.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Conversation Beyond Borders on HYT African TV. We are across all social media platforms, including Facebook and YouTube. Please tune in and tell a friend that we are live today. My name is Kiki, and before we begin, I would like to sincerely appreciate Mr. Fifi Mpari for keeping the seat warm while I was away. Thank you so much on behalf of the HYT African TV family and all our viewers. Thank you so much, Mr. Fifi, for the good job that you did while I was absent. Tonight, we are privileged to host a respected communicator and a public affairs strategist whose voice continues to contribute to political and national discourse in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, before I bring my guest to the show, let's go for a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Dear investors and business community, London is calling and the bus is moving. Join us for the Ghana UK Investment Summit 2026 under the theme, The Reset Agenda, Restoring Investor Confidence to Unlock Opportunities and Shared Prosperity, with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the keynote speaker. The summit will bring together key industry leaders, investors, policymakers, and business executives to explore partnerships and opportunities between Ghana and the United Kingdom. Register via www.ghukis.co.uk. Remember, the date is June 1st and June 2nd, 2026. Be part of the conversation shaping the future of investment and shared prosperity. My name is Her Excellency Mrs. Saba Zita Benson, and I'll be hosting you. See you soon in London.
Every black person should please remember that you were Africans before you became anything else.
Revolve is a media technology company that specializes in providing music, entertainment, and lifestyle content from around the world. It is driven by a mission to offer the best music, entertainment, and lifestyle experiences for a global audience, as well as a vision to become the foremost global provider of music and entertainment content with a focus on Africa and Black communities across the world. We curate content and personalized recommendations based on user consumption habits, and is well positioned to capture the growing demand for African music and entertainment content. Revolve appeals to both the underground and mainstream audiences who are interested in African music, entertainment, and lifestyle, and the Black culture movement, with a target audience of ambitious, creative, aspirational, social media savvy, ethical, sociable, yet independently minded individuals. Our platforms allow users to access a diverse range of music and lifestyle related content, including news, videos, gossip, performance series, podcast conversations, documentaries, festival content, artist reviews, and many more through the following categories and brand names: RV Daily, RV Unmute, Vibes Up, Reveal, Verve, and Revolve Plus.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. So joining us tonight is Honorable Abbas Adams Nuruddin. I hope I got the name right. He is the Ashanti Regional Communication Officer of the NDC and also the CEO of Social Investment Fund. Tonight we'll discuss leadership, business, communication, and national development. Mr. Nuruddin, welcome to Conversation Beyond Borders.
Hello, please. I'm having challenges with the sound.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can't seem to.
Dear investors and business community, London is calling and the bus is moving. Join us for the Ghana UK Investment Summit 2026 under the theme, The Reset Agenda, Restoring Investor Confidence to Unlock Opportunities and Shared Prosperity, with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the keynote speaker. The summit will bring together key industry leaders, investors, policymakers, and business executives to explore partnerships and opportunities between Ghana and the United Kingdom. Register via www.ghukis.co.uk. Remember, the date is June 1st and June 2nd, 2026. Be part of the conversation shaping the future of investment and shared prosperity. My name is Her Excellency Mrs. Saba Zita Benson, and I'll be hosting you. See you soon in London.
Ebusia, sa wo mani sika ifi America memu akofidie enkani se gya utipa ya kra. If you say Pay Angel ediasem panaba. Pay Angel se mani sika fi America eko Ghana, Nigeria anase Kenya wasemantem. Ye mani ye ni kaso nkokwa ne se obreju me bia enka ho ena won san chia sika biara eka dia wo mani ne pe ho. Ani zero stress and no hidden charges. Yes, sign our rater and dance ankasa.
Hello.
Into which trending. Download the Pay Angel app nene or Google Play Store and as Apple Store. Then yes, you can win. Pay Angel, global payments, local simplicity.
Okay, you speak and let's see.
Hello.
Dear investors and business community, London is calling and the bus is moving. Join us for the Ghana UK Investment Summit 2026 under the theme, The Reset Agenda, Restoring Investor Confidence to Unlock Opportunities and Shared Prosperity, with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear now.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us out of your busy schedules. We are really grateful to have you. So, for context sake, can you tell us exactly who you are?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. As you may know already, my name is Abbas Nuruddin. I am the Ashanti Regional Communication Officer for the NDC, and I'm also the Chief Executive Officer for the Social Investment Fund, which is one of the agencies under the Finance Ministry, and a senior member of the government communication team.
Great. You've worked in political communication and public institution leadership. So, from your experience, where is the biggest gap between government policy design and the lived realities of ordinary Ghanaians, particularly when we talk about young people?
Well, I think for quite some time now, there was a bit of, should I say, some disconnect between government policy and the lived reality on the grounds, as you indicated. And that is largely as a result of the fact that most of the policy designers do not actually bring on board the stakeholders, the people who will be at the receiving end of policies that are supposed to be implemented to have a positive impact on their lives. And if we should zero in on specifics, for instance, for some time now, there's been this general cry that government's economic policy, government economics, government economic achievement seem to be on paper only. When it comes to the reality, there is a lot to be desired. So if you take the macroeconomic indicators, for instance, you could sometimes hear that inflation is at an all-time low. Economic growth, it's at an all-time high. Our reserves are increasing. I'm talking about the period preceding the John Mahama administration. You could hear that the indicators of our economy are doing quite well. But when it comes to the real sector or the lives of the people, generally not much was felt. Sometimes you could ascertain that government economic policy, as I indicated, have kind of achieved some positive impacts on paper, but in real terms, it is. But fast forward to John Mahama administration, I think we are bridging that policy gap, and that is largely because our 2024 manifesto was people-centered. That because it was the document on which we were forming a social contract with the people. The input of the people were sought. The input of opinion leaders, the input of civil society was sought. So the document that more or less became the bedrock on which all governmental policies were supposed to be hinged on emanated from the people. That is why, for the first time since the inception of the Fourth Republic, the ratings of the government have been quite high. This is largely because the basis upon the foundational document upon which the NDC came to power emanated from the people. And most of the policy framework that came thereafter more or less sought to give effect to the things that came out from the people. If we have to zero in on specifics, if you look at most of government flagship programs like the Big Push program, it was more or less designed to resolve the age-old infrastructural challenges that has bedeviled the country Ghana. And this big push wasn't a policy designed out of the blue. It more or less emerged as a result of the concerns coming from chiefs, opinion leaders. So it has come at a time to resolve the challenges that emanated from the people. If we put that challenge aside, one other major concern of the people prior to the coming into office of President Mahama was the difficulty in stabilizing the exchange rate regime, such that at every point in time, the dollar or all the other major hard currencies were always moving through the roof. The government decided to leverage on our gold resources, especially in the artisanal small-scale mining sector, more or less centralize and nationalize it, sell it, get the needed forest to support the forest market. That is the reason why, for the first time in the history of Ghana, the cedi has appreciated against the dollar by a whooping 40%, has appreciated against the pound sterling by 20%, and has appreciated against the euro by 15%. So, getting back to your question and summarizing all that I've said so far, government policy in time past, the design of government policy was more or less far removed from the very people that were supposed to benefit from it. But what the John Mahama government or the NDC did in 2024 was to get a manifesto that was people-centered, that emanated from the people. So for the first time, we have a government that is delivering according to the expectation of the people, that is delivering according to the felt needs of the people. And this is largely because this time round, the policy was designed with the major stakeholder, which is the people, right at the center.
Honorable, so with the implementation of the policy that you've made, Ghanaians or some critics feel they feel neglected, that you are focused on one part.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, please, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh my God.
Oh dear. Okay.
I'm struggling to hear you.
Dear investors and business community, London is calling and the bus is moving. Join us for the Ghana UK Investment Summit 2026 under the theme, The Reset Agenda, Restoring Investor Confidence to Unlock Opportunities and Shared Prosperity, with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the keynote speaker. The summit will bring together key industry leaders, investors, policymakers, and business executives to explore partnerships and opportunities between Ghana and the United Kingdom. Register via www.ghukis.co.uk. Remember, the date is June 1st and June 2nd, 2026. Be part of the conversation shaping the future of investment and shared prosperity. My name is Her Excellency Mrs. Saba Zita Benson, and I'll be hosting you. See you soon in London. Dear investors and business community, London is calling and the bus is moving. Join us for the Ghana UK Investment Summit 2026 under the theme, The Reset Agenda, Restoring Investor Confidence to Unlock Opportunities and Shared Prosperity, with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the keynote speaker. The summit will bring together key industry leaders, investors, policymakers, and business executives to explore partnerships and opportunities between Ghana and the United Kingdom. Register via www.ghukis.co.uk. Remember, the date is June 1st and June 2nd, 2026. Be part of the conversation shaping the future of investment and shared prosperity. My name is Her Excellency Mrs. Saba Zita Benson, and I'll be hosting you. See you soon in London.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me now?
Please, I can hear you loud and clear now. I don't
Thank
know
you
where
so
the
much.
disconnect,
Yeah, I
sir.
think we're having a little bit of a technical challenge.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying that some critics feel neglected, that you guys are focused on a particular policy that you're making, and you are kind of neglecting the needs of Ghanaians when it comes to employment.
Okay, I think I heard the first bit of your question, but at the tail end, the line went off. But
Went off. Can you hear
yes,
me?
yes, I can hear you now. So
Okay.
if I heard you right, you were saying that some people are raising issues about the level of unemployment and joblessness and the
Yes,
failure
because you
of
seem to
government
be
policy.
focused on the dollar rates and other developmental structures as is going on in Ghana, which every Ghanaian can see. But the real question is, what is the government doing about the unemployment rate in Ghana?
You know, at the time the John Mahama administration came into office, the rate of unemployment was around 14.8, almost 15%, according to the Ghana Statistical Service. And in real terms, the number of Ghanaians that are unemployed are about 1.5 million people. That is quite an alarming number. And I think unemployment or youth or graduate unemployment in Ghana now is a ticking time bomb. And every government that is desirous of staying in power for the long haul must do whatever it takes to address it. So the NDC government has rolled out a number of programs to ensure that unemployment in Ghana is reduced to the barest minimum. But you see, everything boils down to the mentality and the psychology of the people. In Ghana, everybody going to school, every graduate want to work in the public sector. But you know the public sector lack the capacity to absorb the over 1.5 million people presently unemployed. And in any democracy or any capitalist economy, it is the private sector that is the main engine of growth, and that is the key driver of employment. So, what government needs to do is to create the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive so that they would in turn employ the teeming unemployed graduates that we have in the system. In the past administration, you could hear or you may have heard a lot of industries folded up because of the unfavorable business climate. We had a lot of multinational companies like Game, Big Pen, Fritor Oil, all relocating to neighboring Cote d'Ivoire. That was largely because of the challenges we had on the microeconomic sector. Now, the government's economic policy is having a positive toll in terms of private sector businesses. Inflation is now at 3.8. Because inflation is at 3.8, it has had a positive impact on the interest rate. And you know, a lot of businesses fund their activities through credit. So if the cost of borrowing is hard, what it means is that the cost of doing business also goes up. And in most cases, if people find this unfavorable, they just repatriate their profits in other economies, other countries where the business climate is friendly. But the recent economic indicators, the first quarter economic statistics is showing very positive economic outlook. So far, from January to March, or from January to April this year, our economy has grown by above 6%. In nominal terms, from last year, when President Mahama came to office, our GDP was standing at 80 billion. Now we are doing 120 billion. So, by way of creating the enabling environment for private sector participation in our economy, and by extension, absorbing the teeming unemployed youth, I think the John Mahama administration has done quite well. And given the fact that every new business registers with SNET, GRA, and other things, so far we can boldly say that within the short period that government has been in office, up between 300 to 400,000 jobs has been created. Even though that is not enough to mop up the excess unemployed graduates in the system, but that is a good start that, if we are able to build on, will help us tackle the issue of unemployment. Then there is this other aspect on self-employment, government flagship policies that are helping youth startups, youth entrepreneurs, like the Ejumawura program. Not long ago, more than 10,000 people with fantastic business ideas were trained, and they have been given some startup capital to go and start on their own and become employers of other graduates that are unemployed. The National Apprenticeship Program, that is training more than 50,000, equipping more than 50,000 youth with the needed skills and giving them technical support to set up on their own and also employ and train others, is also another flagship program that is intended to tackle the issue of unemployment. There are other programs like the Nkokon Ketenkete program, the Youth in Agriculture, and the establishment of the farming support centers, which is supposed to create the enabling environment for graduates to go into commercial farming. And government is putting in place the necessary mechanisms to more or less develop a whole agri value chain, where youth graduates who go into employment will have their produce purchased, value added, and exported for foreign currency. So yes, the issue of unemployment is a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. But I think the John Mahama administration has tackled it head on, first by creating the necessary environment for the private sector to thrive, and also implementing some flagship programs to ensure that youth startups are given the needed capital to start on their own. But I think the game changer would be the 24-hour economy, which is supposed to create a 3-shift, 24-hour per day employment system, which will enhance productivity, create additional space for employment, so that most of our guys can be employed. So far, in the government institutions, there are certain government institutions that perform essential services, like the passport office, like the ports, and the DVLA. So far, they have rolled out their own version of the 24-hour economy. But the expectation of the people, or the greater component of the 24-hour economy, will be rolled out when government will more or less bring on board some key industries, support them with stimulus packages to be able to run a three-shift system that will more or less double or triple their present employment, more or less population, and create more space for the teeming unemployed youth. So I think to say this government's economic policy is not yielding much in terms of youth employment is far-fetched. I think government, for the past 1 year that we have been in office, we have done a lot to tackle the youth unemployment situation in Ghana, and the records from SNIT, the record from DSS bear us out. Is there room for improvement? Yes, and that is what the next NDC budget will seek to do. Recently, the president has spoken about a new economy. That is the economy the President Mahama administration is seeking to introduce post IMF program, where 1% of GDP of about 1.6 billion is being set aside to generate employment for the youth. So I think in the next 1 or 2 years, the story of youth unemployment would have been reduced to its barest minimum, and Ghana would be all the best for it.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. We are so grateful for the education that you've given to us. I want to move from government and then unemployment to accountability and public trust. You've been very, very vocal on oral. What is happening? It looks like the process is being slowed at some point. Ghanaians they're asking a lot of questions. What is happening? Because you came with a lot of power, you came with that vigor, you came with a zeal to ensure that whatever that has happened in the previous government, everybody will be brought to account. But it looks like there is a bit of a slow process when it comes to oral.
Well, I think oral is very much on course, and it is important we move beyond the emotive expressions and should I say, the blackmail of the opposition. Because if you understand how the justice system work in Ghana, if you understand how anti-corruption institutions operate in Ghana, you would know that on the anti-corruption value chain, there are processes, there are stages. So if you want to more or less go on the path of accountability, the first thing you need to do is conduct investigations. After investigations are conducted, dockets are built, and where there is a prima facie case, where there is enough grounds to proceed, prosecution starts. Once prosecution starts, the issue of conviction is squarely within the ambit of the judiciary. And you know, per Article 125 of our Constitution, the independence of the judiciary is guaranteed. So government so far has investigated about 215 cases. Out of that, 15 of those cases is in court now. On the basis of that, about 1.7 billion worth of assets have been stolen. So far, Iyoko has recovered about 600 million. So to say oral is slow, for me, is not a fair assessment of the situation. But people believe that when we talk about oral, we are only talking about convictions. Oral goes way beyond convictions. And oral is a shortened form or an abbreviation of the term Operation Recover All Loots. So if government is able to recover loots without even securing conviction, it means oral is succeeding. And as I indicated, so far, Yoko has recovered about 600 million Ghana cedis. Yes, Yoko does not deal only in issues of corruption, they deal with other issues like carjacking, money laundering. But considering the fact that in 2024 they were only able to recover 140 million, 600 million in 205 is a market improvement that can be built on. Like I said, the term was Operation Recover All Loots. Sometimes loots can be recovered when conviction or the guilt of accused persons are proven in court. So while that process is ongoing, the right thing to do is to have the accounts that are suspected to be proceeds of corruption or crime frozen. And that is what exactly the Attorney General has done. And for the first, this Attorney General must be commended for the spirited fight he has mounted against perceived corrupt officials in the past. This is the first time that in the history of the Fourth Republic that we've had the Attorney General prosecute 5 high-profile cases in the first year of government. That has never happened. And to put matters in proper perspective, MPP secured its first conviction on May 20th, 2020. That was 4 years after, almost 4 years after they had won power. Despite the fact that they made a lot of noise about corruption and all of that, they could only secure their first conviction 4 years after coming to power. This tells you our judicial system, our justice system has procedural safeguards or inbuilt mechanisms to ensure fair trial, to ensure that at the time the guilt of somebody is proven or at the time a person is convicted, the prosecution must have proven beyond reasonable doubt that indeed the crime was committed and that people are not being politically witch hunted, but they are being held to account for their stewardship. If you look at particular cases under oral, the national service case is proceeding quite steadily. Prosecution has so far mounted a solid prosecution, a solid case that would take more or less a great deal of effort to be able to be dismantled by the accused. If you look at the Wontumi cases, the court is almost about delivering judgment. If you look at the SkyTrain case, it is proceeding as expected. But one thing we should all be mindful of is asking for speedy trial at the expense of more accuracy. We cannot sacrifice the fundamental human rights of individuals to fair trials on the altar of speed. That is why there is the key principle underpinning our criminal jurisprudence is that it is better for 99 criminals to be left off the hook than one innocent person to be incarcerated unjustly. That is why the standard of proof in criminal cases is proof beyond reasonable doubt rather than the preponderance of probability. The proof beyond reasonable doubt, as we all know, is a much higher threshold. And all these is intended to ensure that at the time conviction is secured, there would be no doubt in the minds of right-thinking people that the crime was actually committed. So in conclusion, I would say oral is on course. Very soon the convictions will start trickling in. And it may interest you to know that a lot of people have offered to enter into plea bargain agreements, which plea bargain agreement has been rejected by the Attorney General. If the Attorney General wanted the easy way out, he probably could have accepted that, take the monies back to the state, and that would be the end of the case. But the Attorney General wants to go beyond that to secure conviction, and that would take time. So all of us should be minded by this legal cliche that the wheels of justice grind slowly, but we definitely will get to our destination. And
Thank
justice
you.
hurried is justice buried.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable, before we go on a quick commercial break, you describe free primary health care as one of the best social interventions when it comes to healthcare system. So what makes this policy different from the previous healthcare initiatives?
Well, the free primary health care is a game changer because it seeks to revolutionize healthcare delivery in Ghana. And to put the issues in proper perspective, 20 years after the introduction of the National Health Insurance Scheme, only 66% of Ghanaians, representing 22 million, are covered. It means there are 11 million Ghanaians that are not covered by the National Health Insurance Scheme. One logical conclusion anybody could reach could probably be that some of these people are not on the National Health Insurance as a result of the financial constraints. You know, in Ghana, there are some people in the hinterlands who don't earn even up to 500 Ghana, whose annual income is not up to 500 Ghana. For a person like that, subscribing to the National Health Insurance and renewing same occasionally may be a challenge. So the free primary health care is eliminating the financial consideration to healthcare delivery. What this means is that if a person goes to seek primary health care at a CHIP compound, at a health center, at the public education unit of a district hospital, whether he has a National Health Insurance card, whether he has a Ghana card, he will be taken care of free of charge. And the distinctive feature about the free primary healthcare policy is the fact that it targets preventive and promotive healthcare. All previous health interventions focuses on curative healthcare. By preventive and promotive healthcare, what I mean is that government is seeking to prevent the ailments from occurring. Government is investing resources in preventing certain diseases from developing in the first place. And this government will do by engaging in promotive healthcare. By promotive healthcare, government is seeking to decentralize healthcare delivery to the unserved and underserved communities, such that on certain occasions, health screenings will be conducted in market, breast cancer screening, cervical cancer screening, checking of the BP of particular groups, checking the sugar level of particular individuals, so that the early alarm bells, if any, will be picked, and such people referred to other secondary and tertiary facilities for healthcare. In so doing, we prevent people with high blood pressure from degenerating into getting stroke. We prevent people who have high sugar levels or who are pre-diabetic from getting diabetes. What this does is that it saves a great deal of household income. Imagine you have a mother who is prone to hypertension, and the hypertension is not treated and it degenerates into a stroke. Sometimes the financial resources needed to take care of a stroke patient becomes a toll on the family, despite the fact that some productive hours are sometimes spent taking care of the patient. A lot of resources are expended, and sometimes at that terminal stage, we end up even losing such individuals. So now government is embarking on preventive healthcare. We go to market, we go to mosque, we go to schools, we do this BP checks, we do this sugar level checks, we do breast cancer, cervical cancer screening. So if there are early warning signs, these are picked up and the person put on treatment so that it doesn't develop into the fatalities that we often see. To put the
Thank
matters
you.
in proper perspective, my sister, the leading cause of non-communicable death in Ghana among women are cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, and breast cancer. And oftentimes, these issues are diagnosed at the latter stage where the patients cannot be saved. But under the free primary health care, breast screening will be conducted in markets so that where early signs are picked, our mothers will be put on medication so that it does not degenerate. So the free primary health care is a game changer insofar as it seeks to take primary health care delivery out of our hospital to the homes of the people, to the markets, their farms, their hospitals, the unserved and underserved community. In so doing, we will be able to reduce this incidence of stroke, this incidence of diabetes by about 20%, and the nation will be all the best for it. And it is important to state that it is not all medical conditions that are covered under the free primary health care. But the beauty
Okay.
of the healthcare system we have now is that where free primary health care is unable to support you, the Mahama cares take over. The
Right.
national health insurance takes over. So if you are already an individual suffering with kidney disease, with cancer, the Mahama Care or the Ghana Medical Trust Funds is on hand to provide the necessary support to ensure that you have access to quality health care and financial consideration does not become a barrier to access to
Thank you.
health care.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Just to a little bit of question for you. We've seen change of government normally when there's change of government, whatever was started from the previous government is not being continued. So how realistic is this long-term sustainability for the healthcare initiative that you've just launched?
Well, I think it is quite sustainable because the government has put in place the necessary statutory and financial framework to ensure that a future MPP government will not throw the free primary healthcare policy under the bus. I am aware that the National Health Insurance Act is going to be amended to make a portion of the funds from health insurance available to fund the free primary health care, and government is putting in place the necessary mechanism to ensure that we are able to also take a percentage of cash from the contribution of SNIT contributors to fund free primary health care. I think the MPP has not in principle opposed the free primary health care. The only issue we've heard them raised is the concern that the national health insurance already catered for free primary health care. And that particular point we have vehemently opposed, because if the national health insurance was a panacea to our health problems, all Ghanaians would have enrolled. So the fact that only 66% of our populace are on the national health insurance gives the indication that financial consideration may be a barrier to access to free primary health care. So the free primary health care has come to fill the loopholes in the national health insurance scheme. So the free primary health care is supposed to complement and work hand in hand with the national health insurance policy to ensure we have a whole health delivery ecosystem that tackle health issue from primary, secondary to tertiary levels. So insofar as the MPP as a party has not opposed the free primary health care, it is our hope that in the distant future, when Ghanaians ever give them the opportunity, they would maintain it. But I believe by that time, there would have been enough statutory and institutional framework put in place to make it very difficult for any government to cancel the free primary health care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable. Dear viewers, let's go for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we will wrap up.
Dear investors and business community, London is calling and the bus is moving. Join us for the Ghana UK Investment Summit 2026 under the theme, The Reset Agenda, Restoring Investor Confidence to Unlock Opportunities and Shared Prosperity, with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the keynote speaker. The summit will bring together key industry leaders, investors, policymakers, and business executives to explore partnerships and opportunities between Ghana and the United Kingdom. Register via www.ghukis.co.uk. Remember, the date is June 1st and June 2nd, 2026. Be part of the conversation shaping the future of investment and shared prosperity. My name is Her Excellency Mrs. Saba Zita Benson, and I'll be hosting you. See you soon in London.
Thank you so much for staying with us, and welcome.
Thank you
back.
very much.
Yeah, Honorable, you've publicly supported the restoration of GN Bank's licenses from the regulatory and economic perspective. Do you see the original revocation as necessary corrective active, or policy judgment?
Well, I think I would answer this issue from two perspectives: the legal perspective and the socio-political perspective. You know, legally, the Bank of Ghana is seized with jurisdiction and authority to regulate the financial sector according to the Banks and Specialized Deposit Act 2016. And when players in the financial sector act in ways that puts depositors' fund in jeopardy, the Bank of Ghana is clothed with legal capacity to take regulatory actions against them. And if I recall clearly, the major reason for the revocation of GM Bank's license at the time was largely as a result of their inability to meet the capital adequacy ratio at the time, and also not being able to recapitalize, not being able to provide the 400 million Ghana cedi for the recapitalization of the bank, and refusing the option to merge with other banks. So that meant they were not solvent enough to operate. The other issue was the fact that GN Bank was engaged in a lot of insider dealing. Deposited funds were being taken to invest in other businesses of the directors, which was against BOG regulations. So, on the basis of that, the Bank of Ghana took regulatory action against GN Bank by revoking their license. Legally, I don't think there is much to be said insofar as the action taken complied with law. GN Bank went to court. At the High Court, the judgment was not very favorable. They proceeded to the Court of Appeal, which by a unanimous decision has ruled for the release of their license and assets. As you know, the legal journey is inconclusive. The Bank of Ghana has also indicated its desire to go to the apex court, which is the Supreme Court. So probably in the coming days, if they file a stay of execution and go to the Supreme Court, the judgment of the Court of Appeal would have to be put in abeyance. So insofar as the Bank of Ghana has indicated their willingness to go to the Supreme Court, I wouldn't want to go so much into the legalities of it. I would want to focus on the decision that attended the revocation under the MPP administration. The contention of GN Bank at the time was that government was indebted to it to the tune of 7.1 billion. They have funded a lot of government projects. So if government paid them the 7.1 billion, they would have been adequately capitalized to meet their reserve ratio, to meet the requirement of depositors. So insofar as government is not making that funds available, it is government that is contributing to the financial crisis it has fallen into. At the time, only 9 billion was needed to capitalize all those banks. But the government decided to spend 25 billion instead to collapse all these banks with its attendant job losses and other issues. We felt that decision was a bit strange because all over the world, government take strategic economic decisions to protect indigenous banks. That is why you go to Nigeria or you go to the United States of America. If I should take you back, in 2008, there was a global economic crisis. And the global economic crisis was caused by American banks like Citibank taking depositors' money and investing in real estate. The real estate sector crashed. So the monies invested could not be recovered. So all the major financial institutions in America went into serious financial crisis. That is what caused the global economic crisis. The American government could have chosen the path the Akufo-Addo government chose by collapsing all these banks.
That's right.
And about 350,000 Americans would have lost their jobs. But what did the government do? The government decided to roll out a 200 billion bailout package to save these banks. In so doing, the banks were able to recapitalize and recover in time and save all the American nationals working in this institution. So our expectation was that the government at the time would not collapse these indigenous banks,
Right.
but would have taken steps to save them, as the Mahama administration did by giving Capital Bank a bailout package. But government chose to collapse this institution. And the other bit of it was the selective application of the law or the selective collapse of these institutions. There were particular banks that were also facing liquidity challenges, but the government refused to take regulatory action against them because these were institutions that were seen as pro-MPP. A typical example was Prudential Bank. The situation Prudential Bank was in at the time was no different from the situation all the other banks that were collapsed found themselves. But the government decided to save Prudential Bank from regulatory action and collapsed other institutions that were facing similar challenge. So our major issue at the time was that if you want to take regulatory action, you have to be fair, you have to apply the same law equally. The selective application of the law at the time gave the indication that the whole banking sector cleanup was not well intentioned. Also, there were other banks that had no liquidity challenges. They had no capital adequacy ratio challenges. But the government decided to collapse them simply because they were pro-NDC. And the directors were standing trial. I'm talking about Heritage Bank. Heritage Bank, at the time it was collapsed, had no challenges whatsoever. They had not breached any of the Bank of Ghana directive or statutes. But the Bank of Ghana still decided to collapse it, largely because the owner of Heritage Bank, Alhaji Seydou Agongo, was standing trial. And you and I know that standing trial without more does not in any way prove the guilt of an individual. That is why our criminal jurisprudence is underpinned by the principle that a person is innocent until he is proven guilty or he himself has pleaded guilty. And the mere arraignment of an accused person before court does not in any way lead to guilt. But Royal Bank and Heritage Bank were collapsed largely because their members were in court. So in that light, we felt the regulatory action taken at the time was selective. It was biased by political consideration. That is why we believe that regardless of the challenges Kwesi Indom was going through, government would have saved the bank. The best option was not to revoke the licenses. The best option was to roll out a package to save the bank and save the jobs that that industry provided at the time. But like they say, it is better late than never. Now their license have been restored, waiting for what would most likely happen at the Supreme Court. But I believe regardless of the challenges, regardless of the issues, we need to build captains of industry. We should have Ghanaians taking the commanding heights of the financial sector. Prior to the banking sector cleanup, there was 36 banks in Ghana. 18 was indigenous Ghanaian banks and 18 were foreign banks. Now, almost 30 of our banks are owned by foreigners, predominantly Nigeria. The UBA, the Zenith Bank, the Fidelity Banks of the world are all owned by Nigerians. And this is largely because the Nigerian government has made it a point to support Nigerian nationals to take the commanding heights of the financial sector. Because if you have your nationals taking charge of the financial sector, it plays a role in socio-economic development. You go to China, for instance, the Central Bank of China is giving Chinese nationals interest-free loans to come to Ghana, to come to Nigeria, invest, get profit, and repatriate it back to China for economic development. And the nationals are able to do this because of the preferential treatment they were given by the Central Bank of China, borrowing at a 0% interest rate. So if any other person even goes to borrow at a 5% interest rate to do the same business, the Chinese national will have a competitive edge over the one who borrowed at 5%. So we must make it a point to build local champions to help Ghanaians take charge of the financial sector so that they can support indigenous businesses to grow and absorb the teeming unemployed youth.
Thank you very much, Honorable. We would love to have you another time. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for taking time to be with us on Conversation Beyond Borders. And so we'll stay in touch and then still have you another time on the show. Please have
Thank
a
you
good
very
day
much.
and enjoy the evening.
Thank you
Dear
very much
viewers,
for
thank
having
you
me.
so much for
Thank you
staying
very
with
much.
us. You are welcome, Honorable.
Thank you. Thank you. Hope to see you some other time.
Sure. Thank you so much. Dear viewers, thank you for staying with us. Sorry for the technical issues that we were having. But please tell a friend to tell a friend that Conversation Beyond Borders, we are beyond and we'll continue to go beyond across the globe. See you same time next week and have a lovely evening.
You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong. You are always welcome home, welcome home. You've been kept down for much too long. Stand up, please, and say I am free. Don't forget you are welcome home, welcome home. Come with me on this happy trip.